Hi guys, welcome to the TCCW Carnivore Community Worldwide Live. We are here with Miss Faith, and of course we have Joe and Dennis as well. And looking forward to hearing the story and all the conversations that come up. So Miss Faith, welcome. And if you will, please tell us how you got here. What brought you into the animal-based world?
Health. Basically, I was plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, raw, vegan, a combination of all of those things for over 30 years. And I was a proper health freak with it as well. You know, I was having the smoothies and the nut juices, not juices, but nut milks and butters. And, you know, I really thought I was doing it all really, really well until I wasn't. And about 4.5 years ago, I was rushed through loads of tests at the hospital, and they found 2 heart conditions, autoimmune condition, several thyroid problems, and their suggestion was meds, eventually operations, and we manage the symptoms, and that's about it. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You know, I'm almost 47 now, so I don't consider myself old, and they were kind of writing me off. So I was like, okay, something's got to change. And I kept going round and round in circles, and it kept coming back to, you need to eat meat. And I was like, oh, it's been 30 years, you know.
That is a long time.
I did this loop over and over again, and then eventually I was like, I felt like I was dying. You know, I was so unwell, and I was getting worse all the time. And I was like, okay. So I decided I was going to eat organ meats, because I figured that's the most nutrient dense. If anything's going to make a difference, we're just going to go straight in there and get the dense stuff in. And that's what I did. And within a few weeks, I was like, kind of feel a bit different, but you know, maybe it's in my head.
Right.
And I increased the amount of organ meats I was eating, and I ate a little bit of muscle meat. And within a few months, the difference was crazy. And then I came across an interview with Sally Norton and Dr. Chafee, and I was like, oh, oxalates. So that was the next thing, because although I'd started to eat meat, I was still eating the rest of the stuff, because I still thought the rest of the stuff was healthy, the nut butters and things like that. And then I was like, and I had come across oxalates a few years before, and I wrote it off, and I was like, don't be ridiculous. You know, these plants are good for us. You know, this is crazy. And but yeah, I watched that interview, and I was like, you need to cut these oxalates out. You need to see if this is the thing. And within about 5 days, I felt like Superwoman. I could not believe the difference. And I had been plowing, like almost everything I was eating was oxalates, you know, because I thought it was all really stuff. So I have been through in these last few years, I've been through quite a lot of oxalate dumping and histamine issues and fat issues, and you know, all these things, because I was obviously fueling myself in a very suboptimal way for such a long time. And yeah, basically I've just gone down all these rabbit holes, as I'm sure all of you have, and experimented on myself. And I've retrained as well, because I was a health coach telling people to eat plant-based. I've written books on being plant-based, you know, so I have retrained and done some carnivore training and things, and now I'm shouting it from the rooftops that everyone should be eating in this way, and why and how. And I really feel passionately about helping people that have been plant-based move over to being animal-based. And I understand also that that's incredibly difficult for a lot of people, like it was for me, because we believe the propaganda, we believe the animals are destroying the planet, and that we're bad humans if we eat this way, and things like that. So I feel very passionately about helping people with that transition, both on a physical level, so they don't have so much oxalate dumping and all the problems, but on a kind of more of a spiritual level with it as well, and helping them understand that it's just lies. It's just lies to keep us all good, compliant little robots. And it's such a shame. So yeah, that's how I came to be here.
Well, lovely. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Definitely. I know I was vegan for a good portion of my life, vegetarian for a good portion of my life, and grew up in a very holistic, spiritual type household and family and world. And my mom was vegan through most of my childhood, and that whole propaganda and concept about the value of the animal life over what we're eating and what we're doing, and how we get so discorded from the reality of that is just astonishing to me, that we fall prey to that propaganda so easily in that world, because it sounds good, like, oh, that sounds good. But when you really start diving into the understanding of what actually is a living being, what actually is everything, and you start to realize that even the plants that we're choosing to eat are also living, breathing, conscious, if you will, beings. Why is that life so much less important if we're going to go on this basis of, not harming anything else? It's like, why does that make that life so much more important than this one over here, just because you can't hear it, just because you don't think you're experiencing, the traumas that being's going through? And it's like, life is life. We have to give life to have life, and we eventually give our life to have life. Like the, beautiful, beautiful cycle that, can be sad, but it's also reality. There's nothing here on this planet that continues on without taking or giving of something. Nothing. So it is a crazy, crazy thing. But I'm glad to hop over on that other train too, and I'll get off my soapbox now. Somebody else
Well, in talking about that, that's one thing that's kind of missing, especially, there's big debates from meatitarians like we are to people who are vegetarian or vegan, is, the idea that, plants aren't alive, and they are. They're sentient beings. We know now plants can scream, right? And, it's just different because as humans, we can defend ourselves. We can see animals basically run away. We can see animals fight. We can see them defend themselves. But as plants, we don't see that. And we know now over millions of years, to protect themselves, they did produce these anti-nutrients, the lectins, the phytates, the oxalates, right? And, we were unaware. I find it's super interesting, the fact that, you were a coach in the vegan space, and I bet, until recently you got into this space, you never heard of an anti-nutrient prior, because they never teach us that, right? And I talk about that all the time, is that, I minored nutrition, I have 4 nutrition certs, been a nutrition coach for, 4 decades. And until I got into this space 8.5 years ago, I never knew what an anti-nutrient was, right? And once you start learning about those things and you understand that, you can really kind of understand why a lot of us are at the point we are when it comes to our health. Like, and Faith, God bless you, 30 years, right? When you start talking to people being vegan, vegetarian, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they talk about in the beginning how they transitioned. And obviously there's some improvement there depending on your lifestyle. But then what happens is people start noticing, yeah, my health isn't the greatest, right? And we just think that's normal, right? Until you eventually get to the other side, right? Where you start limiting your vegetables, limiting your fruits, increasing your meats, increasing your fats. And it's like, wow, I feel so much better, right? Because once again, the whole aspect when it comes to food, especially since, the 1970s when they really started demonizing meats and fats and promoting grains and wheat and more fruits and more vegetables, they dig down on basically they call them macronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, but they're micronutrients, right? And our body needs limited of those. And we need more of the actual macronutrients, which are the amino acids and the essential fats. And that's literally why in a short period of time, you've noticed a difference, right? Which is just phenomenal. And I love the fact that, you've become what we call a thumper now, right? You're so passionate about this lifestyle because we all say it. We want to get, screaming on the top of our lungs on the tallest mountain so everyone knows. So yeah, that's phenomenal. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Do I still have troubles with the sound, or is it better now?
Mhm.
It's better now. Okay, yes. Well, first of all, I would just like to chime in, and I would like to commend you, Faith, for, switching sort of to the better truth after 30 years of prior experience. I understand that it might have been pretty difficult mentally. I wanted to ask you, like, how did you feel when you understood that maybe after writing books and after teaching people that something doesn't add up? And was it difficult to process? And was it slow or was it fast adaptation? How was it for you?
Yes, definitely difficult to process. Especially when you've made money from people thinking that's the right way. I have some previous nutritional trainings as well, and I was not taught about that plants are bad in any way. Pretty much, have as many plants as you can, and as little as the other stuff. But yeah, it's. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so when I started to go down this rabbit hole, it made complete sense. But I was like, oh no, why didn't I realize this sooner? Like I believe all the other conspiracy theories and things, I know they're not in our favor. The powers that be are not looking after us. It's all about them and stuff. So, but I still didn't see this. I still really believed that this was the way that we should eat, and this is how we care for ourselves, and this is how we care for the planet and the animals and things like that. But the more I read, and I came across people like Lierre Keith, who's so passionate and an ex-vegan environmentalist, and people like that, and I was like, wow, this is like one of the biggest conspiracy theories there are out there. How to keep a world dumb and compliant and weak and all the other things. So I guess then everything just fell into place. So although there was this struggle of still, the eating of the animal, that aspect of it, the rest of it all made complete sense. The rest of it that made complete sense as well. But that was, it's a hurdle to get over. But everything else, I was like, this is what we all need to do. This is why everybody is ill. It's not, yes, the seed oils and things are not good for us and stuff, but you know, this whole vegan, eat loads of soya, you know, all of this kind of thing. It's like it now when I look back on it, I'm like, how did you fall for that? You know, and how did you fall for it for such a long time? It's crazy to me. So, but I know it's difficult when people, you know, they really believe it. And as I did, we really believe it, you know, and it is still that hurdle of actually eating the animal, even if you believe everything else, that actual eating the animal. But that's why I live like I do. I live off grid. I have my own animals. Yes, I still eat other animals and things like that, but I try and do my bit, you know, that side of on that side of things. But also understanding, you know, coming back to the plants being sentient beings and things like that, but also coming back to the fact that we need animals, even if we weren't going to eat them. We need animals to make healthy vegetables, you know, to make healthy soil, to do all the other stuff. So it doesn't even, when you break it down that way as well, it doesn't make any sense. You know, you're going to ship fertilizer in from across the other side of the world that's made from chemicals to grow your cabbage or your avocado or whatever it is, rather than have sheep or goat or cow poo and have them grazing the land. And, you know, the whole thing from start to finish doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do have a question from one of the Instagram streams right now. It said, do you see a difference between plant-based and vegan? Is one a diet and one a lifestyle? That is their question.
Some people say so, yeah. I see, because I have some friends that are obviously still vegan and plant-based, and I see them in battles between themselves now of, I'm vegan, no, I'm plant-based, you know, and I guess plant-based can be anything really, can't it? It can be vegetarian, it can be vegan, it can be raw vegan, it can be fruitarian, you know. And even a lot of people that eat meat would really be probably considered more plant-based, because they might only eat meat once a week because they feel it's bad for them and the environment, you know. So really then they're kind of almost plant-based, whereas vegan, I think, is more of a, I need to save the world and save myself and save the, you know, everybody. And I think you can get a much more ranty, a much more on your soapbox being a vegan than necessarily being plant-based, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah. I have to say I had kind of the same experience where there was, I don't want to say that I felt more righteous. That's a little bit of an extreme perspective, but something close to that. There was this, like, you know, I'm doing better for the world. I'm doing, like, this weird like pedestal you kind of start to unconsciously even put yourself on, because I don't want to say, you know, everyone that's vegan or vegetarian thinks they're better than everyone, because it's not like that. But you do start to get this kind of unconscious pedestal you start walking onto without even realizing, because you think you're doing so much better for the planet and these people don't even know. And, you know, if they'd only wake up and see the truth about, you know, how this is so much better. And it's like, oh man, I sometimes just want to kick myself in the ass for even thinking those thoughts back then. but it's true. And it did teach me a very humbling perspective to come to when I did start to become keto, and then, you know, animal-based, and then carnivore, of like, oh man, like it's not that I am doing better than anyone else, but I'm just more awake and conscious to what the reality is how we work and how we function, and our biological like need to be able to nutriently absorb food properly has nothing to do with that weird pedestal I used to, step on back in the day. For sure. Joe, you are so quiet. I almost am nervous.
No, I'm listening. Well, you know what? It's ideology, right? When we have a belief, right? When it's ideology and we have a belief, we get tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
And when you have tunnel vision, you don't really look outside. The lens is very narrow, right? And I went through that experience. We all have. Like, I remember when the first 2 people asked me about doing a carnivore diet. My exact words were, F no, we don't do that bullshit. We need carbs, proteins, and fats. We need to eat within balance, right? And thought nothing of it, and they didn't ask me. And then a couple of weeks later, a video goes viral, and then I have 40 people, and then we look into it. But that's kind of, even when I think about it, like, I was so close-minded because that was my ideology: carbs, proteins, and fats, balance, right? And that's what I believed in. And that's what happens. We get into this belief system, and then we barrel down, right? And it's very hard for us to get out of it, right? And that's why usually when we do transition out of it, it's such a big deal, and it's eye-opening, and it's awakening, right? Like, we talk about all the time how carnivore people talk about, like, how it, changed your life, saves your life, right? You changed physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? And, and then that's because when you believe in something so much, and then when something literally rocks your world, it is mind-blowing, right? And, and we go, and we talk about individuals like Faith, that is, vegetarian, vegan, whatever you want to, classify your ideology as. We're talking now a 360 view of going from that to a meatitarian, right? So, and that's why you see so many people in Faith's position that are vegan, vegetarian, and they switch over. Like, it's dramatic. It's more dramatic to people who are still eating meats and some vegetables and fruits. But when you eliminate those meats, because whether it's a spiritual thing or an ethical thing, or the number one thing that I noticed with most vegetarians, it's first and foremost, it was a health thing, right? They just got the idea based on reading a book or seeing a movie or talking to people. It was a healthier thing to do, right? So they always did it for their health, right? Until their health proved a bit, and then it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
With veganism, it's a little more, in depth, a little more entrenched. It's funny, people call carnivore a cult, and I really don't. I call it more of a community, where the dealings I've had with a lot of people, whether they're friends, families, or people I don't know that are vegan, they're very kind of in that kind of realm as well, right? Because their beliefs are so ideologic, and this is what it is, and there's no deviation for it, right? So,
Right.
yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is when we have this tunnel vision, it's hard to get out of it, right? And obviously, yeah, like, Faith, I had the same experience, doing this and making money, and you kind of feel bad, right? Like, it's like being awoken, and now you know the truth, right? And when you know the truth about something, there's always consequences, right? And some of that consequences is taking responsibility for our own actions and what we've done, literally, in the past, right? And you got to give yourself, like, I give myself a lot of grace because, you can get down on yourself a lot when you start thinking a lot of these things. But the bottom line is that's what we're taught, right? And, whether you believe in conspiracy, I'm more a corruption inclusion guy, where, since the dawn of time, the Romans, as soon as there was a government and there was money, there's corruption inclusion. And literally that's what we have when we talk about big food companies, pharmaceutical companies, medical companies. Everything is designed to basically kind of benefit them when it comes to their profit line, not the people's health. And I love, Faith, that you actually said, you got to take care of yourself, because that's the truth. You cannot count on basically, the food industry, the medical industry, and that's what it is, a medical industry, not a health industry, the pharmaceutical industry, to basically take care of you, because we all know, the 4 of us here, food companies just want you eating, they want you fat, and basically, The pharmaceutical industry literally wants you on meds because they can care less about your root cause. Bottom line is you have an issue, we're going to medicate you and we're going to manage that for the rest of your life, which is ludicrous, but that's just, it's dogmatic. It's normal now, right? Which is kind of crazy. And we got a big job of, basically making people aware that that's not normal. These things aren't normal and you should be living a lot better and greater life. And you can just by eating more species specific and appropriately, which doesn't include a lot of fruits and vegetables. Actually, none. You really want to talk about it, right?
The other day, somebody said to me, I know loads of people that are fit and healthy on a normal diet. I said, no, you don't. And yeah, I do. I said, no, you don't. I can guarantee you that every single one of them is taking loads of meds, or they're self-medicating with alcohol and uppers and downers, whether that's legal or illegal or whatever. Right. I said, I guarantee you. And they kind of went off for a second, then they came back and they were like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something, it's kind of like the ugly underbelly that people, don't want to talk about. And that's one thing why I'm also very adamant about in our carnivore space. I tell people I'm not perfect. I have days that I don't have carnivore food. I mean, it's almost never, but not never. There is the reality that I support this way of being because, as Dennis and James, who's watching as well, make very common, consistency over perfection any day. But I don't hide the fact, I don't sit over here with a big giant flag going, I'm absolutely carnivore perfect and I never have ever had anything and I do it all, blah, blah, blah. Joe, on the other hand, is perfect in carnivore, just so you know.
Well, it's funny. People have that perception because I don't deviate, but the difference is I don't believe in perfection. There's no such thing. I believe in consistency. So, exactly. Right, I'm regimented. I'm consistent. I don't deviate from my consistency. So I don't get into those positions. And for me, the reason being is I've been very transparent with my food disorders, my eating disorders, my food dependencies. So I know I can't not be consistent because it's very easy for me to fall, right? And,
for sure.
Like 100%. And like, even, you think after like I'm 8.5 years, like today is 3,135 days, but, like if I would deviate with carbohydrates because it was my dependency and it was my drug of choice, I know my body still remembers, right? I had a relationship with that food, right? And I like the position where I'm now where, I'm Italian. We have big feasts. Like my family literally will eat for 4 or 5 hours, and that's just a regular Sunday dinner. We're not celebrating anything. We just have a group of people eating a lot of food. And I would skip those things, right? I would skip those things because I could not handle it, right? I would tell myself I'll just have a little, but a little will turn into a lot, and then I would binge, right? Where now is, I have recognition. I can smell pizza and hey, it smells good, but I have no interest in having it because I'm never hungry anymore, right? But I know if I ate it, well, that might be a different story because I know, 8 years ago, like the last time I had a carb was around 7 months in. It was at my Nana's house. And it was easier for me to have a bowl of pasta than tell my 100-year-old Nana, which is grandmother in Italian, that her English wasn't great and my Italian's not great, why I'm not eating a bowl of pasta, right? So I had a bowl of pasta.
At her house.
Yeah, especially at her house, right? So I had the bowl of pasta and literally I struggled for like 5-6 days. All I wanted to do would eat pasta, chocolate, ice cream. Like ice cream was my Achilles heel, right? Couldn't have a liter in the house because it'd be gone in a day, right? So yeah, perfection, not a thing. Consistency is a really big thing, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of called you out because I knew that you would.
No, listen, I get the views all the time. I get the gears all the time, and I'm okay with that. And I'm a thumper, right? Like I don't deviate, I don't sugarcoat. I'm the tough love guy. But and sometimes a lot of people kind of need to hear that. My big thing is, you know, there's too many people that, like cheat meals. This big thing that's trendy now, carnivore cheat meals. Like, what do you have on your cheat meal once a week? And I'm like, that's like not a thing, guys. Like literally, like you got to get rid of that. Like, and the wonder why people struggle, right? Like, I want everyone who does carnivore or animal based or keto, if it's ketogenic lifestyle, I want them to thrive. I want them to do really well. I want them to experience it. And what happens is by doing these little things, they don't. And that's why my message always kind of stays the same and I don't really waver, right? And if you screw up, like I have clients screw up all the time. I'm like, let it go. Give yourself a grace. Just get right back on, right? I love my clients. Oh, should I fast for 2 days? I'm like, F no. I'm like, literally just drink your water, get your salt, eat your meat, eat your fat, and get back on track. Like, don't beat yourself up, right? Because having eating disorders, which I did, you beat yourself up, right? Yeah. Constantly. And that's, and people don't realize, when you put on a lot of weight, like you're talking, the 80s, the 100s, the 200s, the 300s, and you might not be aware, but you're literally using food to comfort you, right? And you don't even know that, right? And that's your dependency. And that's a food science thing, right? Food was never designed to comfort you, right? Like that's what people forget. We've lost our way. Food's supposed to taste good. Food's not supposed to make you feel good. It's not supposed to comfort you. It's not supposed to make you euphoric. That's food science. Right. They made food so palatable and they pound in all these sugars and vegetable oils. I love people always say, well, I'd rather eat food than have sex. And I'm like, well, that's how screwed up your hormones are, that you're getting a more natural hormonal response from dopamine and serotonin from eating food than actually having an orgasm, right? Like that's not a natural thing. And that's not a human thing. That is a food science thing, right? So yeah, I don't, I'm nowhere close to perfect. But I just, consistency is key. And I always say that. And you just got to do it.
Oh, sorry, Selena. If you're saying something and the sound doesn't come through.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I've seen some of your older stuff, Joe, where you've kind of gone into more detail about that. And it's something that is very important to me to make sure people hear that, like, we're not perfect. And sometimes, like you said, you're regimented because you know that you're not perfect. And it's like, if you have that, that's going to definitely cause a landslide. You're not, somebody who's impervious to
there's no such thing, right? The perception might be a certain way, but the reality is it's not, right? Like we all kind of want to, and I actually think it's a social media thing. We all want to look great 24/7 all the time, right? And I always talk about that, like, especially in our space, like everyone, everyone always basically promotes their wins, right? Oh, 1 month, 30 pounds. Oh, I, don't have gas anymore after 2 weeks. Oh, like, and which is phenomenal and great. But what happens is no one really posts people's struggles because there's a lot of people that still struggle on carnivore, right? Yeah. And the reality is they need to know you're not alone. So many people do. As many people get great results, there's double the people that don't. And that's because, one of the biggest differences between macros and carnivore is macros is very cookie cutter, right? I can tell you I made a lot more money as a macro coach because it was just cut and paste, right? It's pretty simple. Where carnivore is different because hormonally and metabolically now, as soon as you eliminate carbs, the body is like, holy crap, what's going on here now, right? Mm-hmm. And then it has to reassess. And most people are metabolically broken. They are hormonally broken and they're not functioning optimally. And, when you take away that aspect of, a deficit, reducing carbs because you're eating so many more carbs, well, guess what? It's not about calories at that point. It's more about, how your body's handling hormonally, and then basically, a surplus of energy, right? Which it's virtually impossible in our space to get to. So yeah, it's totally different where, I wish more people would say, I did carnivore, I did it for a month, I felt a little better, I lost no weight. I did carnivore, I lost no weight, and I still feel crappy. What's going on, right? And people really don't look at their lifeline. Like, everyone's different. It doesn't take in consideration gender. It doesn't take in consideration basically age. It doesn't take in consideration your health. If you're on medications, it doesn't take in consideration your lifeline. If a person was basically eating lousy for 5 years, well, guess what? They're going to get a different hormonal and metabolic response than a person who was eating lousy for 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Right. And that's why, the nuances are a little different. So, yeah, I wish, more people would basically, express, the good and the bad and working through it. And some people do, some people don't. But yeah, even, like, I have a joke, and most people who are fat know that, once you're a fatty, you're always a fatty, right? You're just a fatty in a different body, right? I still have perception problems. I sometimes walk by a mirror and do a double take because there's a jawline. Because for the majority of my life, I didn't have a jawline. I had 2 chins and 3 chins, not 1, right? And that was even my adult life being educated, right? It's this perception thing, right? But yeah, and it's work every day, right? It's work every day. It never ends. Like, I wish I could tell people you're just going to cruise and be awesome and never have to worry, but there's still work every day, right? Like, I still plan my meals. I know what I'm eating. I just don't wing it, right? Like, and I know for me, that works the best. And for most people, it does. Consistency and structure works always the best.
Absolutely. I'm going to pause you there, Joe. We have a question from James. It says, Faith, do you recall your first bite of meat post-vegan?
Yes. It was some raw cow heart.
You went for the gusto.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
As I said, I wanted to do the organs. I did my research like a good little plant-based person before. And I was like, okay, I remember liver and kidneys when I was a kid, and I think that's going to be a bit much. But heart seems like an easier one, and I'm not going to cook it, and I'm just going to swallow it like a pill. So I cut it up into little pieces, but the piece wasn't small enough to swallow. So I chewed it, but it actually didn't taste very much. And it didn't, because it wasn't cooked, it didn't have a weird consistency or anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay, right. This is okay. I was like really surprised. But I did, for the first 2 weeks of starting to eat meats, or organ meats particularly then, I did give myself a hard time about it. I did kept thinking about the animal and and this, that, and the other. And then eventually I was like, you got to stop this. Because one of the other things I'm trained in is the nervous system and things like that I help people with. And I was like, you have got to stop this. You are preventing yourself from absorbing as many of the nutrients that you want from this animal because you're making yourself feel like a shit human being, basically doing it. So if this animal is dying anyway, you need to make the most of it, and you need to remember that why you're doing it, that it's here to nourish you and to gain your health back. So I stopped that then. I kind of just kept having a word myself and let that go. But yeah, I remember very well the first few months of eating meat again, and even now there are meats I come across 4.5 years in that I've never had before because I became vegetarian at such a young age. I'm like, oh, I've never had this, or I've never had that. And yeah, so each one I now remember like, I don't know, it's a completely new thing to me.
For sure. It I love that you touch base on that aspect of awareness that, your own self-conversation is going to definitely affect your physical response to things. And that's, that's proven in so many different aspects nowadays, especially now that more and more people are coming out and scientifically making that an awareness, that what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we're telling ourselves and the repetitive record that we put on play is going to affect our physical experience of exchange with anything, whether it's another person, whether it's what we're eating, whether it's, whatever you want to push that to in life. But it is definitely an important factor as well. I learned that as a small kid. There was this amazing human being that was in my life who taught us that, you repeat anything to yourself 21 times a day for 21 days and it will be true, whatever it is. If you don't want to exist anymore, then you can will that into existence. It only happens because we are of a frequency. Frequency aligns with whatever it's attracted to, like water seeks its own level, kind of concept. So the fact that you were able to kind of go, all right, Faith, I got to get over myself. This isn't helping me, is so beautiful to hear, because we don't touch base on that enough, I think, in the carnivore world, that we do have to come to that, like, forgiveness, if you want to call it that, of ourselves, and gratefulness for that which is also helping to support us. So love it.
I did want to say just something that Joe just said about talking about the problems that we have going carnivore or keto or whatever your flavor is. And I think this is really important, because I think that's why people give up, is they think, oh, it doesn't suit me. Everyone else is feeling amazing, feeling like Superwoman or Superman, or, dropping weight, or, whatever. And this doesn't suit me because I've got the oxalate dumping, or I've got the fat adaptation problems, or the histamine problems, or flaring up of MCAS, or, whatever it is. And it's so important to talk about those things, because it could just be a slight tweak in what you're eating or not eating, or how you're eating, like your nervous system and things again, and everything could fall into place. But because everyone's going, this is the super duper amazing thing that's going to make you feel fantastic all the time, they're like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. It's almost Absolutely. Like shame, isn't it? It's like, oh no, this also doesn't work for me. I've tried all the diets now.
Something about me, I'm just, I'm that odd one. I'm the broken one, basically. And it's like, no, that's not the case. It's just like you said, there's tweaking, especially, like Joe explained, this isn't the same as a calorie in, calorie out, count your macros, divide it based off of your height and weight, and it's not a cookie cutter experience at all, by any means.
And it actually seems like a lot of the time it's the people that were the health freaks, like myself, that have more of a hard time of this than someone that was, maybe visiting McDonald's a couple of times a week and, having a lot of takeaways or something. It's the people that had cut out all the fats and had cut out all the bad foods and were eating all the superfoods. The people that really have tried to be better can often end up with much more of a problem. And that certainly seems the way with the clients that I'm working with, is that they're like, but I was so healthy. And I was like, yeah, sorry, you weren't.
Well, their perception of healthy, right? Because we all had that. You brought that up earlier, Faith. You thought you were healthy. And, I thought the same thing, except when you start looking at it, like I, like three of the things that really stand out to me in this space when people start really getting healthy, what improves, right? Their energy improves, their sleep improves, their digestive system improves, right? And outside of blood markers, that's usually what we use. We use those three criteria to see if you're improving. But when people really think about it, like I thought I was doing well. Then I started to think about, man, I can't get through the day without a stimulant, right? I need caffeine, I need sugar, right? But I'm eating all these great carbs, right? Like thought I slept great, except I was waking up multiple times a night. I woke up exhausted, tired, right? I know, listen, one of the things that I loved and the reason I transitioned everything to carnivore in like literally less than a month was my digestive system started healing. My entire adult life, it was Groundhog Day. I'd wake up, eat my, oatmeal and cinnamon and cocoa powder and protein and, do the little bowl there and, be bloated and uncomfortable all day, right? That was literally 35 years of my life, right? And,
Or the
like
the 100 million supplements you added.
yeah, and and like I was, I had IBS, I was constipated, I had digestional issues, right? And like just thought that was normal because everyone I knew, because being in a bodybuilding space, we all eat similar, we all eat the same, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. And yeah, Faith, I 1000% agree with you. I find people that were trying to be healthier down that path than people that are eating more processed foods and mixing in and out, they actually do better than the individuals in the longer aspects, is because their digestive system is actually more overstressed and overwhelmed and less healthy, right? And that's kind of, we have this perception, like we all went through it, and you guys, I'll get you to speak on yours too, where the first 3 to 6 months doing carnivore, we always have these epiphanies, right? Of what you used to do and what you thought was why you're healthy, but you're not. Like I realized, because of my inflammation, because of my arthritis, because of how my body ached and felt, I was living on Advil and Aleve and Tylenol, right? But you don't think of that. You just see yourself, well, I'm working out every day, I'm watching what I'm doing cardio, I'm relatively healthier than this person beside me, but in actuality you're not, right? Like, and what do we always say in our lifestyle? Like, we feel like $1 million, right? Like the sense of well-being, the sense of optimal wellness. Like I know in my life, I never experienced feeling this good, right? Prior, and we thought we were doing all the right things, right? And yeah, people who think, I'm eating all these fruits and vegetables, I'm limiting basically the processed foods and the packaged foods, they're the ones usually that struggle more. And it's because, their digestive system is basically more under attack. Their kidney, their livers are overwhelmed, overstressed because, they just the volume of food, right? That's what I noticed with people in a bodybuilding lifestyle. It's the volume of food too, right? When you're eating 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories a day, rice and broccoli, like I thought I was going to turn into a bowl of rice, broccoli, and chicken because I ate it 3 times a day for like 30 years of my life. But yeah, it's the body wasn't designed to consume this much and that frequent, and that's why we basically we're in the position where we really weren't healthy, and until we actually got to this scenario, we understood what that was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I for sure, people you work with that were doing more plant-based, they'll probably have a longer road than individuals who weren't. We're throwing it in and having the other stuff, especially long-term, right? If you had people plant-based 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, absolutely. You're going to go through a lot more transitional stuff.
Yeah. And often a lot more food addictions, I think, as well. We've often already screwed with ourselves with that one when we've been plant-based for a long time.
Well, I think even the whole aspect of food addiction, there's such a negative thing and people don't want to admit, but I think more and more people, their drug of choice is food and they don't even realize it, right? Like I know it was for me, for the simple fact that, I was kind of a wimp. I don't like being in control. So drugs and basically alcohol wasn't a thing for me. So when I, emotionally ate it, and I needed support, I did it through food, right? And I think people really don't understand that it is a real thing, and people are addicted to carbs. They are addicted to sugar, and they never want to blame food. They want to blame everything else, right? They want to blame genetics. They want to blame stress. They want to blame their environment. But the reality is nothing affects us more than what we consume. And, food, makes us feel better because of how it's actually designed, right? So yeah, absolutely, 1,000%. Faith, I'm curious. So you're 4.5 years in now. What does a day of eating look like for you? Like, what are you eating typically?
A lot of beef,
Nice.
homemade kind of beef burgers at lunchtime. I eat organ meat still quite a bit because, I still have some oxalate issues and things here and there. So I'll eat kidney and liver and beef heart, sweetbreads sometimes, those sorts of things. In the evenings, usually like a big steak or a leg of lamb or something like that.
So mainly ruminant meats, a lot of ruminant meats then?
Mainly, I have my own chickens and things,
Nice.
but I've noticed that the egg whites, even though my chickens are pasture raised and don't eat any GMOs and things like that, still the egg whites kind of upset me. If I just one here or there is okay, but if I get into a habit of eating them regularly, that can be become a problem for me.
Yeah.
And the same with dairy. Like I absolutely love dairy, but dairy does not love me.
Yeah,
And
happens.
I'm completely addicted to it. That's my new sugar.
Yeah.
If there was a tub of yogurt, I would go through the whole thing in a day. And a little bit of goat or sheep here or there, dairy is okay, but again, it just kicks that food addiction thing in again. The same as sweeteners, all the lovely kind of carnivore safe sweeteners and stuff. That's that addiction for me again. It's that sweetness that it becomes a crutch rather than a treat.
Well, it's a systematic response. The body still remembers, your brain still remembers, so you're still getting triggered. And that's why a lot of people can't deviate. So absolutely. And just to clarify, because when people watch this, you said sweetbread.
I was about to touch on that too. I was like, you might have to clarify that for this continent over here.
Yeah. It's blood pudding, right? Like, is that what you're talking about?
No. Sweetbread is thymus. Here in Portugal, it's called Timo. In the UK and a lot of Europe, it's called sweetbread, but it's the thymus. It's a gland of the cow, and it's white, and it's like when I fry it up with a little kind of biltong powder around it, so it's like breadcrumbs in a bit of tallow, and it's like a chicken nugget, but that's soft and tender and beautiful.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, because I have clients in UK and they do sweetbread, but the ones they get, it's soaked in blood. So I don't know if that's something different. So,
we
but
have
I just
blood pudding in the UK.
Yeah.
From pork, from pigs. I thought sweetbread was also called sweetbread in the UK, but then I wasn't eating meat when I still lived in the UK. So I'm maybe a little bit out of touch with some of the lingo.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because people, she's eating bread with sugar in it because that's what it's going to think. I knew it was something else, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. So that's awesome. Okay, that's awesome. Really good.
Yeah, agreed. Because I remember the first time I heard that and I was like, what? What is that?
I wonder how they came up with this name for the animal part, right? Sweetbread.
I think at one point it looked like bread when people used to bake it, but I think I might be making that up. But I think that's why it kind of looked like bread, but I don't know. It's a strange thing to call it. Just call it thymus. Just call it what it is. That's what we do with everything else. Well,
That's probably why they called it sweetbread. They didn't want to call it thymus. But Dennis, they probably got the name because a person probably said, "Hey, that looks like bread," and they go, "No, it's actually from an animal. It's a protein." The person probably said, "Hey, that's sweetbread." There you go.
there you go.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We have to look into the research or the history of it now when we get
Mm.
offline.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned and it's great that when you dove in with like basically organ meats and the heart, because most people think liver would be easier than the heart. But because I have clients and they don't want to take supplements, but they hear all the great stuff about the liver and the organs um, so, my client said, "Well, I heard they're like a multivitamin. How can I get it without actually taking a supplement?" And I said, "Well, hey, listen, you can buy liver, you can buy heart, cut it up in like little half by half inch pieces that you can swallow it. I go freeze it. And basically you freeze them, and basically when you freeze it, you don't taste it and you just swallow it like a vitamin, and basically it'll dissipate in the stomach and you'll get all the nutrients from it. So if you don't like eating it, but yeah, that's super impressive that 30 years vegan, and you dove in, and you even had the we'll say your the mental fortitude to basically push through with that in the beginning is phenomenal. Because most people think, oh, maybe I'll just eat an egg or a piece of fish or a chicken when it's going from that long and transitioning, but to jump right into organ meats is it's pretty impressive. That's awesome.
I think that's the thing, though. If you feel bad enough, that's the scales have tipped, haven't they? And,
Yeah.
and I have so many vegetarian and vegan friends that feel rough all the time, but they're not quite bad enough to take that next step. Although recently I have had quite a few that have, and the difference in them in just a few weeks is crazy.
Well, it's the nutrients, right? Like you're lacking so much when you're just simply consuming fruits and vegetables, right? And I guess that's we've seen in the last 10 years such a big push in the vegan and vegetarian space with protein, like all the protein products, whether it's processed or the plant-based meats, which are just not it's just brutal. But like just the importance of, you do need your protein. You do need to get it up. Like as a vegan, because I've talked to so many vegans and they were taught that, that converted that, we're taught we only need around 30 to 50 grams of protein a day. Like when you became vegan, like how much protein were you eating in a day, or how much were you told was necessary, if any?
I was so young still when I became vegan that didn't really come up. I was told, though, that soya and some kidney beans and this kind of thing was going to be enough. And actually there was protein in broccoli, and, you believe all this nonsense.
Yeah.
So I believed I was getting more than enough because I was eating a lot of plant proteins.
Yeah.
So it didn't even factor in.
Oh, that's interesting. Did you I have another question for you too, just if you've had this experience, because I've had clients vegan, vegetarian, sometimes not excessively overweight, but they'll lose like in a month like 4-6 inches off their waist because they're so bloated and extended. Have you noticed that? Like clients losing 2, 3, 4 inches, even though they're not excessively overweight, just off their waist?
Yeah. In measurements, on the scales.
Yeah.
Everything, like it happens really quick to start with. If there's a lot of bloating, particularly as well, there's people that don't lose anything on the scales but have lost several dress sizes, and that's just the bloating, the inflammation that's going. So it works. If your idea is to lose weight, then it's going to work on so many levels of that, not just this counting calorie thing. And also people that are too thin, and I want to put weight on. They're always worried because everyone's always on about this is how you lose weight.
Yeah.
But actually what I've noticed is their weight might dip slightly to start with, but then they put weight on. So you all, I think, because it's helping your hormones, you'll always end up at your optimum weight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
That's,
Sorry, Selena, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's something that I think people forget, that it's just as equally valuable to those that are needing to gain like true weight, true muscle. And I'm not talking about like bodybuilding muscle, but if you are overly malnourished and you are underweight rather significantly, doing carnivore is going to help you just as equally as somebody who needs to lose over 30 pounds. It's just as beneficial because your body comes into a balance of, oh my gosh, we're fed now, we're getting this nutrient we need. We can now safely provide the nutrients out to the rest of everything else, and not just our brain and our heart and our lungs. And we can sufficiently support the body. And it's so useful for people to be able to hear that just as equally as, yes, you can lose a ton of weight on carnivore if you need to, and that's great. And I'm one of those people, like the weight loss people. But for those on the other side of the spectrum, it works for you too. It's helpful for you too.
Yeah, that's. Go ahead, Faith. Go ahead.
Because it's helping with hormones, it distributes weight to different places. I've noticed, because I didn't really have much to lose, but I've always, even when I've been super skinny in the past, I've always just been straight, like an ironing board. And then what I noticed with this is that I didn't really lose so much weight, but I had a more feminine figure. I had hips and a waist and things that I'd never had before. And I was like, this is crazy. So, you can imagine what it's doing inside for my hormones if it's doing that on the outside, right. And that was just one of those weird little benefits of this lifestyle that I never even factored in, but which really makes a lot of sense to me when you think it's helping our hormones.
Right.
Well,
because we're carrying. Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead. No.
I was just I'll
jump in after you.
You're carrying the weight that supports what we as women are designed to do, which, carry children, whether you choose to or not. I'm not saying everybody has to, but, our physical being at its healthiest point, that is what it's designed to do. And so when you start carrying the proper amount of weight that supports that, I mean, that makes sense how you would start to develop that even after your, pubescent area of time frame in life, because like you said, the hormones are now able to support that for you. Okay, I'm done, Joe. Go ahead.
You're not quick enough with that mute button. So a few really great points on there. The first point is, and I think we focus a lot on weight loss in our lifestyle for the simple fact more people are overweight, right? So and they're struggling and they're looking for something that's different than macros because macros is not working. But the reality is, I have clients weight gain. I have optimal wellness clients, and then I have people who want to reverse illness, ailment, sicknesses, and get off meds, right? So there's more than just one aspect, and a lot of people don't know that. There's literally the four, right? Weight loss, weight gain, optimal wellness, and then just health. But what people don't realize is that everything you eat, everything you drink, your body responds hormonally, right? And you get an internal external reaction, right? People just and that's where they because it's what they're taught. It's all about calories, which it's really not, right? I've done great videos on why actually, especially for women, because if no one's noticed out there, women need a little more support hormonally than men, and that's because you guys have more systems. Like we don't have a reproductive system, right? And what happens is, the more carbs you eat, the more hormonally you're out of balance. The less carbs you eat, the more hormonally your body gets into balance, right? When you eliminate them and you're metabolically and you're hormonally broken, that's literally what happens. You end up balancing yourself out hormonally, your body heals, and then you transition, right? You know, there's a reason why women have the nice curve shape, like a pear, and men are supposed to be apples. It's based on hormonal responses to insulin, cortisol, estrogen, right? We know if a woman, if you kind of have a shape more like a man, less like a woman, you know, okay, I have an imbalance when it comes to estrogen and cortisol, right? And what happens is you kind of balance out. So yeah, so that's awesome. I have a great story of a vegan. I had a client, Georgie. Georgie was 72, New York. When he came to me, he was 3 years vegan, right? And, you know, he just complained about his health, his energy. In 3 months, he only lost 4 pounds, but he 33 overall inches, right? When you looked at him, basically, it didn't even look like the same person. And he went down, like, just on his waist alone, almost 6 inches, right? No
Wow.
more fat on his face, basically no more fat. Like he's like we're doing a coaching call. He goes, "Coach, what's this?" He lifts up his shirt and he has this line on its side. I go, that's your oblique, that's a muscle. And he goes, "Well, I haven't seen that since I was in my 20s," right? So what happens a lot when people transition to vegetarian and vegan and they're not getting, you know, a lot of basically protein, the body ends up burning muscle mass. And that muscle mass, because we've had it for so many years, becomes systematic. The body remembers. So when you start eating more protein, what happens is the body brings it back. So what we figured out is, you know, he probably lost over that 3-year period, if we talk about his age and we take in consideration some hormonal things and sarcopenia, probably around, you know, 8 pounds a year. So he, you know, literally lost probably close to, you know, 14 to 20 pounds of lean muscle mass that, you know, his body literally got back. Maybe not that amount, but, you know, and that's what happens to a lot of people. So many women, like there's, you know, more than men, because with my experience, a lot of women gain weight, or what happens is they'll have non-scale victories, but the measurement victories where the scale's the same, but they're going down 4 inches over 2 weeks, 8 inches over a month. And literally, we know compositionally they're changing. The body's burning fat and gaining muscle. And that happens to so many women for the simple fact, the same thing. You know, when you're under eating protein, which most people do because they're only eating a third, the body will lose that muscle. But if it was there long enough, that's why it kind of comes back. And that's why some women too gain weight, because they're not dropping the fat yet, because it's more based on the body being resistant to insulin at this point. But they lost the muscle and it was systematic. So now they started going from eating basically no protein to an efficient and effective amount. It actually comes back in a short period, right? So yeah, so that's awesome. And that happens all the time. We hear it all the time in our space, right? You know, the scale's not moving, but I'm dropping inches. And that's literally what's happening. We're getting compositional victories and the body is transitioning. And eventually it does balance out. Because one thing about carnivore, when you're doing it properly and you're consistent, the longer you do it, excess body fat isn't something the body likes, right? So eventually it'll get rid of it, right? And you know, it's you know, so because you know, I have people that, you know, sometimes they're not dropping the weight and the scale's driving them crazy, and I'm like, listen, it's only one medium. I go, eventually, you know, you will get there, right? Like I had my worst client to date was 4.5 months, no weight loss, right? As soon as hormonally she's kind of healed and she got fat adapted, the next 6 months she dropped 68 pounds, right? Like that's not a normal thing, but it happens all the time. You know, a month, 2 months, 4 months is excessive. But when we looked at her lifeline, she was also on 22 medications, very unhealthy. You know, 1.5 year carnivore, no more meds. Like it's just crazy. But yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I love that story. I am going to have to close us down today at this point, if you guys are okay, as I have another appointment I have to get to. But Faith, it has been an absolute pleasure and lovely to get to kind of see you, know you a little bit better in like real time. And I hope a lot of the people that were watching, if you will, please make sure you go check her site out, give her a follow, and pay attention to her journey as as with any of us here. But we are going to go ahead and sign off for now. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and enjoy everything. And until next time.
Faith, nice meeting you.
Thank you, and